The following episode of the Maui Chamber of Commerce's Business Matters radio show was originally broadcast on January 4th, 2022.
Happy New Year! Aloha and welcome, Maui, to the Maui Chamber of Commerce's Business Matters radio show, sponsored by Mokulele Airlines. I'm your host, Pamela Tumpop, president of the Maui Chamber of Commerce, and today we're going to speak with economist Paul Brewbaker about housing, tourism, Omicron cases, and the impact of the pandemic. We're going to talk with the CEO of Zippy's on the impact of supply chain issues causing challenges for many different industries. And we're going to speak to a vendor who participated in the 8th annual Hawaiian Airlines Made in Maui County Festival about his jewelry. But let's start this morning with Paul Brewbaker. He is the principal of TZ Economics, a Hawaii economics consultancy agency. His background in research on the Hawaii economy and financial risk analysis stems from a 25-year affiliation with Bank of Hawaii, which concluded when he was the chief economist. He is a graduate of Stanford University, did graduate work at the University of Wisconsin, and received his PhD in economics from the University of Hawaii. He has lectured extensively in international, monetary, and financial economics. He is also a member of the American Economic Association, the American Finance Association, and the National Association for Business Economics, from which he holds the Certified Business Economics designation. Aloha and good morning, Paul. It's great to have you on the show again.
Happy New Year, Pam.
Happy New Year. We had a brief moment just before the show. We were starting to talk a little bit, which goes right into some of the things that we were going to talk about today.
Always.
Always. Everything's so interconnected when it comes to the economy. Let's start a little bit with housing and the connection with tourism, which kind of leads into some of the things that we were talking about, which was a little bit about the moratorium that was put in place, as well as what's coming up with the Minatoya apartment issue.
Yeah, I don't know, less is more. Isn't that the economic development strategy of Maui these days?
It seems to be. Without some of the understanding of where we're actually at with some of the units, in terms of the hotel units, for sure.
Yeah, well, if you, aside from vacation rental units, which are the only lodging capacity growth of the last 10 to 15 years, conventional lodging unit numbers have been declining for 30 years in Maui County. So I don't understand why. You already have less units, so I guess now it's official. But yeah, if you count up the number of hotel rooms, condos, timeshare units, the enumerations for the last 30 years have been in decline. And I guess the cap on short-term rentals also has been lowered in Maui County, if I understand correctly.
They have, yes.
So less is more. Next thing, fewer jobs is better. That's the philosophy.
Yeah, it's getting to be a very interesting time here as we're working to continue to educate people on, again, we're looking at our most important economic engine while trying to manage tourism, understanding that it does, there's ways we can do things better, educating our visitors who care about our islands and helping them understand some of the constraints that we're up against, and deal with some of the traffic and some of the huge issues that we do have, but also needing to protect this industry while we diversify and helping people understand that takes time as well as large investment.
So I estimate that this year, I did some arithmetic on this, and I'm trying to remember where it is here in a spreadsheet I'm looking at, but I estimate that Maui tourism receipts came in 2021 at about $3.5 billion. That would compare with about $5.3 billion in 2019. 2 years ago, it's sort of the pre-COVID peak. Maybe $5 billion on average if you look at the 2017 through 2019 time frame. And my conjecture is you'll get, that's that's what, 2/3 of the benchmark in 2021. And if you assume that you get about 90% of the benchmark in terms of visitor days and spending, then Maui GDP, which this year is about equal to, we're sort of back where, this year Maui was back in terms of output in nominal terms, not real terms, to where it was 2 years ago. By 2022, you should be back, in the neighborhood of maybe 11 to 12 billion.
Wow.
And the peak in 2018 was 10.5 billion. Again, these are in nominal terms. So, there's an inflation that's a little higher than a couple of percentage points, maybe 3 percentage points higher than the pattern for the 2010s. Although a part of that is transitory, and you'll be talking about the supply chain component later in the program. But, Maui's clawing its way back, and of course it's mostly about the tourism recovery. You asked about housing. Construction did fairly well, and, kind of a makeup year because there was a deer in the headlights moment in the spring of 2020. But the state's enumeration of housing unit counts in the first 3 quarters of 2021 was exactly equal to the average for the previous 7 or 8 years. So about 570 units authorized for construction by a county building permit. And you should come in, Maui's going to come in for the year as a whole in a range of 650 to 800 units. That's about the high point for the decade that recently ended. So not a bad year. I mean, definitely a recovery year. The problem in the economy is elsewhere, of course. You're about 10,000 persons, 11,000 persons below the job count. The employment numbers of 2 years ago, and about 16 or 17,000 jobs below 2 years ago. Towards the end of 2019, and of course there are more jobs lost initially with the shutdown of the economy in the spring 2020 upon COVID's initial arrival. But I think it's an open question whether we're going to actually get back, whether Maui's going to get back to the pre-COVID employment benchmark. It's in the zone in terms of output. A lot of that's being produced at home still because of public health conditions being what they are, and because we conducted this unplanned experiment simultaneously to see how working from home turns out. And it turns out it's not shirking from home. It's actually really productive for a lot of people.
Yeah.
But then we're going to conduct another experiment this week of sending all the kids back in the middle of a pandemic wave. So that'll be interesting.
Yes, starting
back
today,
school,
right?
everybody.
Back to school today.
Vacation is over. Like, it would be that hard to have Christmas vacation for one more week. How about you just stay at home for one more week? How about 2? Let's come back after Martin Luther King Day. Yeah, I have a bad feeling about that. My kids are all grown up, so they, as the mayor here likes to say, this is about personal responsibility. Yeah, like getting T-boned at an intersection. They're all vaccinated and boosted and whatnot. But there's
No,
a lot of kids that aren't.
No, that's very true. It's very interesting. My kids are grown as well and out of the house and have been for some time. But thankfully, I think back to what my job looked like this past year and think, gosh, how could I have even done it if I was educating children at home? So we've had people working from home, but many have been educating their children from home, and yet now we're looking at the numbers and we're seeing Omicron rise, and as we're watching this, the kids go back to school today, and like you said, many still aren't vaccinated. So it's a scary time still.
Two-thirds of Maui County's population has received at least 2 vaccine doses.
Yes.
But that means that 1/3 of Maui's population is a sitting duck.
Yeah.
And so, and I mean, what can I say? What are we waiting for? I mean, and unfortunately, I mean, here, the real scary part is all of Maui's children under the age of 5 are sitting ducks.
Yeah.
So, watch those, everybody went home for the weekend, or I don't think there was quite as much testing capacity over the weekend. I mean, just looking at the numbers, and your normalized morbidity rate on Maui was, this week is going to be, 2,000, 2,500 daily cases per million, per million persons, which translates, I'm guessing this week, 375 to 425 cases daily, and maybe 500 daily cases by, later in the week. So what happens is the testing ramps up during the work week, and then you get a really good read on it by about Wednesday or Thursday. Today's numbers will be the first sort of, I think today's numbers will be Sunday's test, but it's going to take a while. It's already bad, and it's going to get worse. I mean, I think I sent you the graph. I mean, fun for the whole family. Go download the 7-day moving average and have a look at it with the kids, and impress upon them the importance of keeping that mask on and social distancing. And
yeah. I mean, I'm watching so many people were having debates that we had over a year ago, starting again, and just everybody was starting to get used to the freedom of not wearing the mask and starting to get more comfortable. And here we go as we watch these rising numbers. How do you see that and some of the new discussions on restrictions trickling down, and how do we best prepare for, another economic shift with this?
Well, as we always teach undergraduates in economics, the best thing you can do when there's a recession is to reduce the amount of productive capacity you have in the economy. So Maui's like right in there. We're going to have fewer lodging units, or kind of make it harder to build houses, and I'm being sarcastic, but it's sort of like opposite.
Well, that in a number of cases, Paul, that actually is true in some of the bills we've seen this past year.
Make sure we do exactly the wrong thing. But this whole sort of deindustrialization agenda is at front and center in Maui political economy right now. All the guys who moved to Maui and wanted to be the way they imagined it was before they moved to Maui. That's that whole thing.
Yeah. The dynamics are definitely changing. So
here are the sort of broad numbers. So 2 years ago, there were 85,000 persons employed in Maui, and today there's 75,000. And GDP is about back to where it was. 2 years ago, there were 80,000 jobs in Maui County, and today there's 65,000. And again, output is actually GDP, is arguably approaching or at where it was a couple of years ago, and some of that's from productivity growth. By the way, there was a little silver lining in what we were just talking about. Although, yes, you went through a lot of hardship having to school from home, and the lessons you learned from that, people, is your teachers probably should be paid more. No, but
yes,
but
they should.
Come on, guys, it really is that important, and it's that hard to work. But yes, there was a silver lining in that a lot of people pimped out a new home office in the last year or two, partly because they're working from home, partly because they needed remote learning spaces, and they made investments in information technology, computing, getting everybody on Zoom, and getting everybody a new Chromebook. And so there's actually been a little bit of an increase in, IT capital formation, and it's not that there are more housing units, but the quality of the housing stock, so to speak, was enhanced by making, improving the physical configuration of many households to adapt it to more working from home. And so we are seeing a little bit of a productivity bonus from that. It's looking like for a lot of people that can work from home, that they will continue to engage in hybrid work arrangements where they're maybe at home a couple days a week and collaborating in workspaces a couple more days a week, and 2 to 3 days seems to be the sweet zone. And HR departments are getting more comfortable with the idea of doing that. And of course, if you're monitoring performance from an output standpoint, in terms of, is the firm actually able to produce what it used to in the new normal, then most people are finding that it's worked out way better than they expected, employers and employees alike. For some people are stuck in the old, the other way to measure performance is in terms of inputs, right? Counting keystrokes and having a webcam, Big Brother at home.
That's very old ways, yes.
That is very old school. Sorry, guys. You need to think, flip it on its head and think of it. So there has been a little bit of a productivity gain, I would imagine, from this one-time increase in information technology investment, and it's not all going up in the gaming and online shopping. And while we're talking about that, there's been a big shift towards e-commerce.
Yes.
And so Maui, if you look at where you got hit in jobs hardest, it's accommodation, food services, business services, and retail. I mean, in those four sectors, you're still 12,000 jobs below where you were a couple of years ago. And we're looking at decreases. I mean, food service job counts are almost 50% below where they were a couple of years ago.
Yeah. Retail's
down 20%. Some of that's not coming back. I mean, so a lot of, you'll talk about this with maybe the, is it L&L or Zippy's, or who are you talking to?
We're going to be talking with Jason Higa of Zippy's next, yes.
Yeah. So, I mean, they've always kind of occupied that sweet zone, which is dine in or take out. But I think you'll find that they've made some investments in, essentially in apps, in booking apps or ordering apps that improve their productivity and make it possible to. That's a tough environment to be operating in food service, where you're in. There's a lot of customer contact, face to face, and as we've seen, ongoing, health risks that need to be mitigated. So, as I say, both in households and firms, there's been this little bonus of productivity growth from investments in technology. Some of them is mundane, as businesses who built their first website and for the first time got into online distribution.
We saw some of that.
Help the economy.
We saw a movement. Certainly, it continued this year, but we had a little bit of a tragedy this year. But last year, when we did the Maida Maui County Festival, many of our local manufacturers geared up with a new website, and it was really exciting to see them kind of move into that arena. Others enhanced and augmented their sites, and again, it's just continued, like you said, over the last couple of years. And
look, there are no boundaries in cyberspace.
Exactly.
So, right, you don't need people to get on a plane and fly to Maui if that's really bugging you, right? You can just open a portal into cyberspace, and of course, not that far down the road your avatar will be selling things in the metaverse somewhere. I mean, that's coming, you guys. So,
it is coming.
Get ready for it. Virtual Maui. Like, you don't want them to come to Maui? Good. Put it in the metaverse.
We're gonna have a new reality game. Yeah.
I mean, you're not gonna do road pricing. You're not gonna have use booking apps to manage the loading on your recreational natural resources. I don't know why, but fine. The way to you can either mitigate the negative externalities of tourism directly by just managing it, or you can add to your export revenue stream, for which tourism is the principal reason for Maui's $10 to $11 billion of annual GDP by expanding outward into the metaverse into cyberspace and eventually into the metaverse.
Yeah. Yeah, and actually we're gonna pass the whole VR and go to augmented reality and go to AR.
Well, think about why these pressures exist. Hosting apps, booking apps lowered the search and matching costs that previously confronted a traveler, right?
Mm-hmm.
So there's an asymmetric information problem. People don't know where the cool spots are, right?
Right.
But they do now with Google Maps.
Right.
And so you've got everybody knows where all the cool places are, and everybody knows how to get there and book it, so they don't have to stay in the ghetto, which is what, right? Maui's tourism model is segregation. We'll stick them in the ghetto, right? We'll stick them in Wailea, and then as long as they don't come into our neighborhood, we're good, right? It's like, bro, what the hell is that? But as we all know, they're driving around because that's how Maui rolls, right? We put the resorts as far away from the airport as possible, and we have no meaningful public transit. So of course they have to get a rental car or an Uber or a taxi or whatever. And so now everybody's moving around both roads, and it's just kind of to me what's obvious is that the bandwidth is the constraint, right? It's the physical infrastructure, it's the spatial nature of the economic infrastructure, right? You've got these ghettos in West Maui and in South Maui.
I can't imagine, Paul, you calling West Maui, South Maui a ghetto. I just have to say, it's some of the most gorgeous areas.
No. Don't misunderstand. I love. Hey, come on. I'm a tourist when I'm on Maui. I love. I used to. Do they still fly into Kapalua? I gave up flying to Kahului if I was going to a meeting in West Maui, because you fly to Kapalua and there you are. You're in Kapalua.
You're in the gorgeous spots.
But now, of course, I don't have to go to a meeting. I can Zoom it.
Yep, that's
right.
So
we're running out of time here, but the real strategic question is, we've got this mindset, this dichotomous, archaic mindset where there's residents over here, and then there's those freaking tourists over there. And as long as they go stay in the ghetto and stay away from our neighborhood because they changed the character of the neighborhood, then we're good. But the reality of the world we live in right now is that all the smart kids, like all the really productive workers, all the people with the critical and analytical thinking skills that make them the most productive and with the highest incomes, those guys can work from anywhere now. We just conducted the experiment, and it worked out fine. So they're all sitting in a house somewhere elsewhere on the planet going, wonder if I could spend 3 months on Maui and just work from there. And no offense to the Marriotts and the Hiltons of the world, but they're probably not going to stay in the Four Seasons for 3 months, right? The really nice places you can afford to stay in for a short while. But if you're actually going to be working for a few weeks, you got to go get a short-term rental. And what Maui's doing is the exact opposite, making it less likely that people can work remotely from Maui. Like, they'll be working. They're not driving the road to Hana. And you know what? Knock yourself out, because we'll take them.
Everybody across the state is saying, yes,
we're all those
send them
guys.
our way.
We're going to go, and help our friends in Boulder, Colorado while we work remotely.
Yep,
so,
that's true.
That's the world.
Paul, I have loved, as always, having you on. We've got to have you on again soon, and I deeply appreciate you getting up early this morning to be with us. Thank you so much. And
great to talk with you again. I don't know if I'll ever see you again, Pam. It's so weird.
Via Zoom, at least.
Right? We're like Zooming instead of flying.
All day long. You're right. You're so right. Well, thanks for the great information, and we truly appreciate it. And let's have you on again soon.
Anytime, Pam.
Oh,
Aloha.
aloha, Paul. If you're just tuning in, this is Business Matters, and we'll be right back after a brief commercial from our sponsor.
Mokulele Airlines operates the largest commuter airline hub in the country, right here in Kahului. Fly Mokulele from Kahului to Molokai, Lanai, Hana, Waimea, Kona, and now Hilo. Mokulele also operates the only flights between Kapalua and Honolulu. There is never a middle seat on Mokulele, and every seat has a window and aisle. Visit mokuleleairlines.com and take your next flight from the newly renovated Mokulele Terminal.
And we're back. This is Business Matters, and our next guest is Jason Higa, CEO of FCH Enterprises, which includes Zippy's Restaurants, Napoleon's Bakery, Food Solutions International, and A Catered Experience, ACE, and Ka'ala and Pearl City Sushi. So that is a lot of different restaurants and food service organizations. Zippy's Restaurants was founded by brothers Francis and Charlie Higa in 1966. So they celebrated their 50th anniversary in 2016, which means at this point they are 58 years in Hawaii. They are one of the very few locally owned and operated Hawaii large restaurant chains in our state. So, Jason, aloha and good morning. So great to have you back on the show this morning.
Good morning, Pam. Thank you for inviting me back. Thank you.
You're welcome, and Happy New Year's.
Happy New Year.
You know, we have been working together, and we've been very concerned about the Maui County Ordinance 504, and there was also a Honolulu City Ordinance 1930 relating to banning disposable plastic foodware. And let's talk a little bit about this issue, because there have been a number of supply chain issues that really have hampered people complying with this. And so I wanted to have you share a little bit. You and we were able to, work with a number of folks who were doing a yeoman's job of trying to comply with this performance, comply with this ban and the requirement. But given the supply chain issues, things have been really crazy on trying to get the required disposable plastic foodware supplies. So can you tell us a little bit about how this has been impacting, the global supply, how the global supply chain issues have been impacting not just Hawaii, but across the world, and how it's been impacting Zippy's?
Thank you, Pam. Yeah, this global supply chain issue has really been impacting, all sectors. It's really non-discriminatory in nature, impacting all goods, some more than others. In Canada, it's maple syrup. In New Zealand, it's brown sugar. In Britain, it's liquor. And in Hawaii, it's a whole bunch of different items that, for example, Zippy's Restaurants, we've been challenged and impacted with over 40 key products, from milk to tea to ingredients to our food service containers. And it's really the same for all Hawaii restaurant operators. If you've been dining out, you've likely experienced the limited menus that are being offered, and a lot of that is related to supply chain issues.
Yeah, and again, as you point out, it's a global issue, but it's impacting everybody. And of course,
Yeah.
in a remote island state surrounded by water, things tend to impact us when there are supply chain issues. They tend to impact us more and increase costs more. So, I know there's a number of factors relating to this cause. So I'd love for you to share some of the things that, we've seen in what is not only causing the supply chain issue, but what is keeping us from, fixing it quickly.
Right, that's the main question, right, Pam? Because, until you understand what is the cause of, the supply chain challenges, we won't, begin to start to find solutions. And so there's been many, I think, articles and individuals studying, what is really happening. And what we're finding is, there was this initial disruption to demand for goods early in the shutdowns, due to COVID. And so COVID really has been at the heart of many of the impacts. And later you had labor impacts due to the pandemic again, workers that were unfortunately ill. But there were other factors that were happening. Manufacturing was creating physical distancing now, and that impacted their ability to produce. And you had split shifts, for example, where they tried to keep workers separated because of the contagious nature of COVID.
Right.
But you had the impact to manufacturing. You had the impact to all major ports, to trucking, to rail. And in all these sectors, you had the impact of labor due to COVID. And guess what? Not just in the U.S., but all countries, especially impacting were the impacts in China, where many goods originate.
Yeah, I mean, over the decades, so much of our manufacturing was sent overseas. So much of our manufacturing is being done by China, even if it wasn't a U.S. company that was sent overseas. Did a lot of their work overseas, and even their Omicron numbers are crazy. I mean, we're just seeing so many labor shortages as we continue to go through this, both with the social distancing and now with Omicron, and it's getting to be a wave that we're all watching continue to escalate. And, it came at a time when, again, we had this ban on the horizon just before the end of the year, and we started sharing some of this information because businesses who were trying so hard to meet the ban that was coming, were saying, we don't have any way to do this. Can you share some of the metrics on, what was happening with shipping and, some of the statistics that share why this has become such a huge problem?
Sure. And as you mentioned, Pam, the businesses on Oahu and on Maui have been making great strides to comply with the respective ordinances. And as much as I think the businesses have been trying to comply, what they're facing is just the unavailability of the supplies that they need. And so, some of the metrics that are really happening, a container, originating from China would have a turnaround of about 60 days pre-COVID, and now that turnaround is about 100 days. And that just gives you some insight into, how long more it's taking for products to arrive, the backlogs, bottlenecks at many of the major ports. And as you mentioned earlier, because Hawaii is so remote in the middle of the Pacific, you are having somewhat greater impacts onto many of the products that, restaurant operators rely upon, including the compliant containers.
Yeah, and we've also seen that the container costs also now, given some of these challenges, are increasing.
That's exactly right. A container might cost on average about $4,000 in 2019, and now it's escalated as high as $25,000 per container, and that container cost escalates the cost of the products that are being received. So even if you are fortunate enough to find the products that you need to comply with the ordinances, what you're finding is the cost per container has escalated, to multiples that, most operators never anticipated.
Yeah, and as you point out, as you were talking about earlier, the 40 different products that you folks have been, impacted with and trying to bring in, as we see the challenges with these products and we see the costs go up, the consumers are seeing prices go up as well. The costs have to be passed on. So it's a huge challenge that everybody's, we see President Biden's trying to work on it and untangle the mess at the docks. And, we're looking at all of this and watching this and saying, okay, this seems to me, we've seen issues at docks before, but this, as you point out, COVID has really created a brand new situation. We now see that we have to revamp industry issues, but also even if we, untangle some of those issues, we still have the virus that is still impacting workers and people out sick. We're seeing landslides right now in the airlines industry, of course, with a lot of airline cancellations because they just don't have the workers. That's happening in manufacturing. So there's these challenges, and everybody's trying to figure out, okay, how, we're seeing prices go up, we're seeing supply chain disruption. How long is this going to go on? And we really don't know. But can you share some of your thoughts on where this is going? And in the short term, I know, we'll talk about the relief effort that we've seen in Maui with great appreciation for Mayor Victorino for understanding this issue. But the key question is, how long do we think this is actually going to continue?
I think that the reality is that no one really knows. There's so much uncertainty about how long, the supply chain issues will last. However, I think many are estimating at least 12 months with
Yes.
concerns that this could last for as much as 24 months. And the reason for the concerns about it lasting, as long as 2 years is really connected with what we're seeing with the COVID-19 situation. You had Delta, we're dealing with Omicron, and we're looking, unfortunately, at future variants, and much of it is coupled with the vaccine hesitancy. So as long as we fail to reach a certain level of vaccination across the nation and across the world, we're going to continue to have these variants thrive within our communities. And as Paul shared earlier in the show, COVID cases are likely to escalate in the coming weeks. And so if we continue to see this cycle of variants re-emerging, then it's really going to continue to impact the supply chain as we see currently.
Yeah, I do. I appreciate you saying that, and I appreciate what Paul is sharing. I mean, again, we're hearing discussions now that were stuff that we had sort of gotten beyond, I thought, over the last 6 to 8 months. But people are reemerging and saying, look, we don't want to be wearing the masks. We went through that and we're tired of it. But we've got to be vigilant, folks. This is a time where we need increased protection because we're watching Omicron spread like wildfire. And
one more factor that's a bit unique to this whole supply chain, industry is really it relies upon consistency, where they can predict the demand. So one of the things that is being predicted is when COVID eases, you'll see the return of the demand for goods, but this will require additional months for the supply chain to adjust. It's not something that can be turned on, overnight or increased overnight. It's really going to take a number of months for the supply chain system to adjust to the increased demand.
I appreciate you sharing that because that is really important. It's not like the light switch at our home. There's whole systems that once everything levels out, we have to still refigure out and get customers, for those who are supplying different materials, they're coordinating with their customers. They're trying to gear up and know the needs, but demand is also changing at so many levels because people are doing things differently, as Paul mentioned. Many people are buying things online, or restaurants are operating differently. Many are still continuing to do takeout. There's so many ways that things are changing, and so we need to look at how this all levels out and recognize the system still, once we kind of figure that out, it's going to take, months, and we don't know how many months. And again, there's so many components to this, from the worker side to the production side, when you talk still about where we're going to be at with social distancing, to the shipping. There's so many elements on how this is all going to come back. And that's one of the reasons that was so important. I had the pleasure of working with you, Jason, and many other businesses as we met with the mayor to share the issues that not just industries across the globe are facing, but really with this ban on the plastic, disposable plastic foodware containers, really the impact that was having on businesses right now in this time of so much uncertainty and when we couldn't get needed supplies. So I wanted you to share a little bit about why it was important to suspend the ordinance.
Yes, we are very fortunate that Mayor Victorino's office understood the reasons for suspending the ordinance. And really, under the ordinance, right now, there's significant monetary penalties for failure to comply. And the compliant containers are simply unavailable or the supply is inconsistent. And you're talking about the restaurant industry, which is one of the most impacted during the pandemic.
Right.
So really for restaurant operators on Maui, it would be very difficult to comply, and many are striving, to be in compliance, but it's simply not going to be possible until the supply chain issues are really resolved. And I think the mayor's office really understood that, and in granting the suspension, it's a big relief. It's going to allow operators to, continue to operate, get back on their feet, and hopefully be able to get this compliance supplies in steady numbers in the near future. And, we'll look forward to the ordinance coming back into play.
Yeah, and we really do want to thank Mayor Victorino for meeting with the different supply chain companies who distribute these products to our local restaurants and manufacturing businesses and others. He heard from the business side, he heard from the restaurant owners, and he heard from the suppliers what's happening, and really, there's so much else that's going on right now with Omicron that, he has many things on his plate. But with the ban coming up at the first of the year, we appreciate that he included it in his emergency proclamation to allow the food service containers to continue to be used until we can work out the supply chain issues. And all who were involved said, as this comes back, we're ready to make the move. We've been gearing up for the move. We've been trying to make the move. We're ready when it comes back. But we appreciated the hold and to not enforce it, because also there was significant monetary penalties that could have impacted these small businesses, including penalties of up to $1,000 a day. So, that's huge. As you said, the restaurant industry was deeply impacted and is struggling still to come back and survive. So we thank Mayor Victorino for understanding this issue. And again, it's not unique to Maui, but it is certainly impacting Maui, our state, the U.S., and the globe. So this was an important decision that the mayor made to help our industries continue to get past this while still understanding we're working toward that goal and working hard to, once these issues clear up, get back to that as soon as possible.
Yes, thank you.
Thank you, Jason. I have deeply appreciated having you on this morning, and I just want to also thank you and Zippy's for all that you do in our community and working within the industry to not just look out for, your own restaurant chain's needs, but working with the community, the chamber, and others to address these very big challenges in these difficult times. And I appreciate your great leadership on this and so many other issues. It takes a village, and we're all working together to try and make 2022 a much more positive and fruitful year.
Definitely agree, Pam, and appreciate you and your staff at the Maui Chamber and how much you do within the community to really be the voice of Maui business. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Jason. We'll have you on again another time soon.
Thank you, Pam.
Thank you. Have a wonderful day. Aloha. All right. Well, if you're just tuning in, this is Business Matters brought to you by the Maui Chamber of Commerce. And our next guest is Tom Burke, who is the owner of Burke and Burke Maui. Tom grew up in Idaho and worked in a family jewelry store there. He moved to San Diego and later transferred to Maui and has been on island for 30 years. He has been a salesman and managed high-end retail most of his life. When he turned 50, he was inspired by many different art mediums and wanted to express himself through jewelry. So in 2015, he founded Burke and Burke. Tom, good morning and welcome.
Thank you.
Happy New Year.
Happy New Year to you, too.
So you got inspired by jewelry. Tell us about how you got inspired by jewelry.
Okay, well, I guess it kind of started through my recovery, so here on the islands. And different artists would take me in and shared their love and their art with me, and I was able to pick up some of the things that they shared over the years. And so finally, sorry about that. I set out to live one of my dreams by starting my own business on Maui, creating and selling my handmade jewelry and fine art. Kind of started at the swap meet and the banyan tree. I sold at the Ritz-Carlton, Shops of Wailea, Made on Maui, the Ritz-Carlton, Hana Taro Fest, the Westin, and many others, also at the Fairmont Kealani. I guess what inspired me is I feel art in its many forms can heal the body, mind, spirit, and soul. And through my recovery process over the years, many artists took me in, sharing their love and art, and the artist's way of healing was a great start. So after being able to go back to my chosen profession, I was able to sell and manage and find jewelry and watches. And art in all of its form inspires me through the culture, music, colors, textures, movement, and all the natural beauty surrounding us here on Maui. And I'm so grateful to live on the island of Maui and thankful for all the people who have helped me over the years.
Oh, that is so wonderful. And I love that you said that the artist's way of healing. I just thought that was such a wonderful phrase. And to hear how that just really inspired you, body, mind, and soul. What a wonderful journey and treasure to take you to creating such beautiful pieces of jewelry. Tell us a little bit about the types of jewelry you offer and what makes your products really unique.
Okay, thank you. Yes, I feel like unique, classic, and unexpected kind of describe my Tahitian jewelry as well as my gold and white South Sea pearls. I have Hawaiiana collections. I do lost wax casting. I have free-form and hammered designs, and I enjoy creating new designs and having fun. I can do custom work upon request, and I use precious metals in my products. I hand make each piece of jewelry, and hoping it brings happiness and joy and peace for many years to come, creating lasting memories for your future.
Ah, I think that's so fabulous. Well, jewelry is, I always say, I used to sell purses, and purses and jewelry always fit, and they're always such a wonderful gift. And your line that we got to see this year at the Made in Maui County Festival, just stunning. I want to say your booth was very busy, which was wonderful to see. And, from your bracelets to your necklaces to your earrings, and I love your beautiful Hawaiiana collection as well as some of the silver work that you do. They really are treasured pieces of art. And what I also love about your line is there's really something, Tom, for every style. You've really come out with so many beautiful and unique designs that everybody can find something amazing in your line.
Thank you.
And so, and you talked about you're selling in so many different places or you have sold in so many different places. Where are you currently selling now?
So at this time, I'm at the Fairmont Kealani every Friday, 9 a.m. to 5 p.m. in the lobby, and I can also do private appointments.
Oh, nice. And I love that you also mentioned that so you've got a foundry on island, and you're doing your lost casting here? Your lost wax casting, excuse me.
Yes.
And so do you get many orders from custom work?
I do some, yes. I'm always keeping very busy.
Yes, you are. For those who don't know about lost wax casting, I do because I've worked with manufacturers for a number of years. Can you explain that process to people?
Well, sure, yes. So, first I either have a drawing or something in my mind, and I take a block of wax, I hand carve it, we sprue it up, as what we say, with a little wax peg, put a metal can over it, fill it with investment, and that, when it hardens and dries, so you put it upside down in a furnace, you melt out the wax, so you get a one-time mold. Then you blowtorch your silver or gold till it's liquid, and that is poured in, and then there'll be finished work after.
Yeah.
So that's kind of the basic process.
I wanted you to explain it because you do custom work, and I've worked with other amazing jewelers on island who do the lost cast waxing work. And so for folks, if you want custom work, what's really exciting about Tom being able to do this here on island is you can show him your design and your interest in what you'd like to have done, and he can create it for you because that is a really unique art. And it takes a lot of skill both in creating the cast, carving it correctly, and creating it so that you get a great mold, but also the finish work as well. It takes time, but the refinement is beautiful. And I want to share that Tom's skills are impeccable. So if you're interested in some custom work, Tom would be a great person to reach out to do that. Tom, where can people get a hold of you?
Okay, so like I said, every Friday I'm at the Fairmont, Kailani, 9 to 5. But I'm on Facebook. You can search under Burke & Burke Handmade Jewelry, and you can call or text me at 808-283-0899. And I'll update my locations on Facebook regularly. My email is burkejewelry@gmail.com.
Well, that is fantastic. And that you'll also do but you'll also do appointments by request and meet with people and do private showings, which is phenomenal.
Yes.
Yeah, well, that's awesome, Tom. Well, thank you so much for being a part of our show this morning. Thank you for your spectacular and just glorious jewelry. And we hope to have you on again sometime soon.
Thank you for having me. Have a wonderful day.
You too. Well, everyone, as always, the show goes quick. We just want to wish you a happy new year and send out blessings and best wishes for a joyous new year and great prosperity. This is Business Matters, sponsored by Mokulele Airlines. I'm Pamela Tumbup, President of the Maui Chamber of Commerce, wishing you a beautiful Maui day.